Now that Interstellar has been out for a weekend and people have had a chance to digest everything it offers, I think it is safe to give a full, in-depth, spoiler-filled discussion on the film. Most movie reviewers on YouTube have already shared their opinions and judgments on Interstellar, and from what I've seen, it's a pretty mixed bag. Christopher Nolan is my personal favorite director, and whether or not you want to call me a fanboy or not is inconsequential to me. Memento, The Prestige, Inception, and the Dark Knight trilogy are some of my favorite films of all time. I say this because I purposefully went into Interstellar having seen no reviews, having read nothing about the film, and having only seen one trailer. I did this because I wanted to see whether or not I would be able to critically review this film completely from my own thoughts and observations. Because I am such a huge fan of Nolan, I wanted this movie to be perfect. I wanted this to be the next 2001 and be held in the same esteem as that. If this were any other director, I would not have had the same unreal and unfair expectations. When someone expects anything to be perfect, they're only setting themselves up for disappointment. So, I think it's obvious to say that this film is not perfect. But then again, what film is? It's unfair to expect perfection from Nolan, but I think he gets damn close. And at the end of the day, I'm still thinking about Interstellar, and I'm reviewing it even though I have never done a current movie review on this channel before. So, with my preamble out of the way, let us journey into Interstellar. By now, I'm sure whoever is watching this knows the general beginning plot to this film. Earth is dying and has little time before the crops disappear and the air becomes toxic to breathe. After discovering a binary code from strange happenstances in his daughter's bedroom, Cooper, played by Matthew McConaughey, stumbles upon the secret underground base of NASA. Here, Cooper learns of his old professor, played by Michael Caine, and his plans to save the human race by means of traveling to new planets by way of a wormhole. What anchors this film is Cooper and his relationship with his daughter Murphy. I think this is one of the best aspects about the film, because the first 30 or so minutes establishes and fleshes out their relationship, and it is real, genuine, and believable. The scene where Cooper has to leave Merv is fantastic, and their performances are terrific. This, however, leads to my first criticism of the movie. I was invested so much in the father-daughter relationship that I often forgot about the son. Cooper's son, I feel, is superfluous to the movie. What is here is not bad, but I think that if Cooper only had a daughter, everything would have still worked out the same way, with none of the emotional weight being lost. Although I do have to say that after Cooper and Brand get back from the water planet after having spent 23 years in Earth time there, the messages Cooper sees from his son growing up, getting married, and showing his child is nothing short of heartbreaking. I also say that having only a father-daughter relationship would have worked better because Merv is the one Cooper sees inside the black hole and is the one he gets to see in person at the end of the movie. And I think that if that were the focus, the last scene they had together would have packed a more emotional punch. By the end, the son feels forgotten, and throughout the movie, I didn't care about him nearly as much as I cared for Cooper and Merv. In films such as this, where a huge adventure is going to ensue, all the setup and time spent before the characters actually embark on their adventure can get tedious while the audience is just waiting and killing time before the characters actually go to wherever they're going. This, I am happy to say, is not the case with this film. As I said before, the beginning of the film on Earth before the crew begin their travel sets up Cooper and Merv's relationship perfectly. What I also enjoyed about the first part of the film was the world building and showing what the Earth has come to in this bleak future. The use of interview-style accounts of older people discussing how they lived their lives through all the dust was extremely unexpected and was a pleasant surprise. It gave this world a very real and grounded feeling, something Nolan excels in. Not once did I feel impatient just waiting for them to leave Earth. While I was absolutely excited to finally see that happen, I was nevertheless invested and entertained by what was happening on Earth prior to their departure. There are very few times where I've been in a theater and have just been completely taken aback and in awe of what I was seeing on screen. I have heard countless reviews saying a film is jaw-dropping, but I don't think I've once had my jaw literally drop from seeing something happen in a movie. Here, in Interstellar, my jaw dropped multiple times. The visuals and the effects in this movie are some of the best, if not the best, I've seen in a film, and I do not say that lightly. The scene before, during, and after the crew travel through the wormhole is nothing short of magic on the screen, and all I could do was sit there with my jaw hanging and experience it. That is one of the highest praises I can give this film. It is an experience, and that is exactly what Nolan strives to do in every one of his movies. He believes in engrossing an audience into the world of the film and giving them a theater experience worth remembering, and this is the best experience I've ever had watching a Nolan film. Once the crew go through the wormhole and are near the 3 planets they need to investigate, they discuss the orbit around Gargantua, the massive black hole, and the time dilation concept of being on a planet in extremely close proximity to that strong of a gravitational pull. Let me just preface by saying that I am currently in college with a major of astrophysics, so I am aware of more relativity and quantum physics than the average person. I knew before I went into the film what time dilation was. I knew stronger gravitational fields slowed time down relative to somewhere else under a weaker gravitational field, and I knew the concepts behind wormholes and black holes. I say this because I've heard complaints about the amount of expositional dialogue in some scenes. I didn't personally have a problem with this in the same way I didn't have a problem with the same kind of dialogue in Inception. Both films need to establish the rules of their worlds and how they work, and without it, the audience would be lost. For films such as these, some exposition is necessary for the story to be understood and for it to progress. I'm glad they explained how dreams work and operate in Inception, because I had no idea anything about dreams going into that film except the fact that I've had them before. So I was grateful for the exposition and understood the necessity for establishing the danger and seriousness of the situations the characters were in later in the film. The exposition serves the same purpose in Interstellar in that the characters need to talk about how things work in order to establish tension and weight to whatever is happening to the characters later in the film now that the audience knows everything the characters do. And for anyone skeptical about the scientific accuracy in the film, Christopher Nolan worked extremely closely with physicist Kip Thorne, who was also an executive producer on the film, in assuring the accuracy of the science presented in the film. That means that not only the function, but the look of the wormhole and the black hole were accurate depictions of what those phenomena would look like, and the mathematical proof behind the 7 years an hour on the water-filled planet is accurate according to Kip Thorne. After escaping from the water planet after a terrific and tension-filled scene with the huge waves, the remaining crew are deciding between the last 2 planets to go to since they don't have enough fuel to go to both. Here is where some criticisms about Anne Hathaway's character have come from, because after hammering home the fact that the mission is the most important thing and how necessary it is for Cooper to think about the future of the human race instead of just his daughter, Brand is opting to go to one of the planets because of the fact that she loves the man who is stationed there, even though there is no signal showing he is still alive, as opposed to the other planet where they are receiving a signal. This didn't bother me that much in the theater, and I don't think it's completely out of her character after her speech about love. The love conversations in this film have also received their share of criticism. Brand goes into how she believes that mankind's ability to love transcends time and space, and if something that powerful is drawing her to a planet, then they should follow it. I agree that this is a little too corny and a little too in your face about the message the film is trying to convey, but it didn't take me completely out of the movie. So the crew travel to the other planet where Dr. Mann's signal is still coming from, and it's revealed that Dr. Mann is Matt Damon. Another pleasant surprise for me when it was revealed, and I think his performance was great. When watching this film, I was hoping it wouldn't end up like something along the lines of Armageddon, where the plot goes into contrivance after plot contrivance to force tension and complications for the characters to continually get out of. In the hands of another director, the robot TARS might have turned evil or started doing something to sabotage the mission, one of the crew members would have turned on the rest of them, or something completely unnecessary would have happened to force drama and tension out of a contrivance. Up to this point, none of this happened. All the tension and drama came from caring about the characters and caring about them completing their mission. That is, until Mann and Cooper are alone together and Mann turns on him. I was hoping this wouldn't happen, because as I was watching scenes with Mann, I was wondering why I was getting the feeling that he would eventually turn on someone or all of them. I realized why I was wondering that, because I was both expecting it to happen and at the same time hoping it wouldn't happen. In an already 2-hour and 50-minute movie, I was very happy that Nolan wasn't creating meaningless situations that force tension and don't move the plot along at all. I understood why Mann did what he did, but I don't think there was a need for him to turn into the villain and try to kill Cooper. The twist that the planet is uninhabitable and that there is no surface was interesting and unexpected, but Cooper suffocating, Brand coming to rescue him, and Mann attempting to dock with the ship and steal it was unneeded, and I was a little disappointed that that was the way Damon's character went when that could have been handled in a much smarter and time-efficient way. That being said, the sequence where Cooper docks with the spinning ship and the following use of the black hole's gravity to send Brand off to the last planet was fantastic. Arguably, the last controversial aspect about this movie is the ending after Tars and Cooper fall into the black hole. I have to admit that from where Cooper goes into the black hole and up until he starts talking to Tars about what the place was, I had no idea what was happening. But once he began talking to Tars and explaining certain things, I understood it and was again enthralled and completely invested in what was happening. Tars and Cooper find out that the place they end up in after they fall into the black hole is a three-dimensional representation of a five-dimensional space created by the higher beings that have been hinted at throughout the film. I want to make something clear about this explanation, however. I've heard people who have reviewed this film that were poking holes at the higher beings and why they did what they did, why they didn't reveal themselves, etc. Cooper says to Tars that the higher beings are an advanced civilization of humans that have unlocked the other dimensions and can transcend time and space through gravity. Cooper says this. It's advanced humans, not aliens or other higher beings. So the audience is treated to a fantastic and emotional scene of Cooper trying to communicate with the younger version of his daughter and uses gravity to affect the hand on the watch he gave her, leading her to solve the professor's equations and make Plan A work after all. People have complained about the amount of exposition in the scene, but again, I found it necessary. It might have been a little much, but that's nitpicky territory. I have no complaints about the end of the film. Cooper gets to see his daughter one last time, but she has gotten over her hatred for her father and forgiven him, and lets him go so she can be with her family, saying that no parent should see their child die. Cooper then takes off in a ship to travel to Brand, who is setting up the new civilization. Some people said that this whole ending is unnecessary, but I don't think so. I think it serves the conclusion, and it's nice to have a wrap-up conclusion unlike almost all other non-Batman Nolan films. I'd like to discuss the pacing and editing of the film as well. Nolan loves parallel editing, that is, cutting back and forth between 2 or 3 separate events happening simultaneously in the film. This is most evident in Inception, where the film continuously cuts between the multiple levels of dreams. Here he does the same thing, and sometimes the pacing could have been fixed a bit. At one point the film intercuts between Damon's betrayal of the crew and Merv in her old room trying to see if the answer to the equation lies in there. There are points when we cut away from Earth just after she takes the broken lander out of the box, and a lot of time is spent in space, that when we finally cut back to Merv holding the same lander as if we cut away for just a couple of seconds, I forgot what she was doing for a second and it was jarring. The same thing occurs when Tars and the other crew member were inspecting the remains of the other dismantled Tars unit. We cut away from them for a long time to the other crew members, and when we finally cut back to them, I had the same problem as before. These pacing issues are not nearly as big or problematic as, say, the pacing in Spider-Man 3, but it could have been better nonetheless. At the end of the day, Interstellar is not a masterpiece. It's close to a masterpiece, with some flaws weighing it down. I think if the sun was cut out, if Man's character was changed slightly, and if some of the pacing was fixed, this would be the closest thing to a modern masterpiece of science fiction we've seen in a long time. The movie overall is huge, ambitious, thrilling, emotional, and an experience unlike any other. The score by Hans Zimmer is epic and thrilling, which is to be expected. Is this Nolan's best? I'm not sure, but I think I can safely say it is one of his best. It's difficult to rank his films because each is so different and exists in its own right. Memento is a film noir mystery, Insomnia is a crime drama, The Prestige is a period piece drama, Inception is an action thriller, and the Dark Knight films are intelligent comic book action movies. Interstellar is a sci-fi epic with heart, emotion, drama, and action. As far as how good the film is, I would put this in the same conversation as Inception and The Dark Knight. Do I think the latter films are more solid and have less flaws? Yes. Do I think Interstellar is flawless and as solid as those movies? No. But that does not mean that I didn't love this film. If Christopher Nolan didn't direct this, I don't think we would have the same expectations or criticize it so harshly and then be as disappointed when we find out its flaws. We hold him up to a much higher standard than most other directors, and that's unfair. In reality, he has made a damn good film that is one of the most ambitious I've ever seen, and it will be hard to rival how far this film reaches in the future.